The night had never felt colder in the city. Rain fell in sharp, stinging sheets, bouncing off the cracked sidewalks and washing the streets in a dull, silvery sheen. Streetlights flickered weakly, struggling against the darkness, and somewhere in the distance, the faint wail of a siren cut through the night. On the corner of an abandoned alley, a little girl huddled against a dumpster, her thin jacket soaked through, and her small hands clutching a torn stuffed rabbit. Her hair was matted, her face smudged with dirt, but her eyes, large, dark, and unyielding, shone with a strange kind of hope. She had no name, no home, no family. She had only the streets and the kindness of strangers, which was rare. Tonight, though, she felt an unfamiliar tug in her chest, a pull toward something she didn't fully understand. Somewhere in the distance, a warm light flickered in the windows of a tall house, luxurious and untouchable. The kind of house she had only seen from broken fences and rushing cabs. Inside that house, a family was preparing for dinner. The father, a man in a tailored suit, glanced at his watch with the impatience of someone always running late. The mother, graceful and poised, smoothed the son's hair with delicate care, unaware that their world, their carefully curated world, was about to collide with someone who had nothing. The boy was 9, curious and bright, with the kind of innocence money could never buy. He had been wandering near the backyard gate, chasing his red balloon, when he spotted her, the little girl, soaked, shivering, but looking at him not with fear, but with something almost magnetic. "Hey, are you okay?" he asked, his voice soft. She looked up, startled. Her voice trembled as she answered, I'm fine," but her hands, small and trembling, reached out instinctively, brushing against his hand. Just a brief touch, nothing more. The air seemed to change. The boy froze for a second, as though the touch had sparked a strange warmth inside him. It was a fleeting moment, but it carried something heavier than either of them understood, a connection that ignored the barriers of wealth, family, and circumstance. The mother appeared at the doorway, frowning. "Tommy, come inside. It's late, and it's raining." The boy glanced back at her. "Mom, she's out here alone. Shouldn't we help her?" The mother's expression tightened. "Tommy, you don't know her. She could be dangerous. Come inside." But the boy didn't move. There was something about the girl, the raw innocence in her eyes, that made him defy the first rule he had always been taught: stay safe, stay away from strangers. The little girl, sensing the tension, whispered, "I'm not dangerous. I just want to warm up." Her words were so simple, so human, that they pierced the polished walls of the house. The boy hesitated, torn between obedience and instinct, before stepping forward. "Come on. You can stay under the porch for now. I'll bring you some blanket." The mother protested, but the boy didn't wait. He ran back inside, grabbed a warm blanket, and returned. The little girl wrapped herself in it, shivering, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and gratitude. And in that small act of compassion, something unbelievable began. The father, watching from the window, felt an odd pull in his chest, a sudden weight he couldn't explain. Something about the girl, the way she clung to his son, stirred something deep within him, memories he had buried, emotions he had long denied. It was as though her presence had cracked open a door to a part of his heart that had been sealed for years. For the little girl, the warmth of the blanket was more than physical. It was a bridge, however fragile, to a world she had never known. And as the rain fell harder, drumming against the roof, the boy and the girl sat together on the porch, hands brushing occasionally, sharing a silence that spoke louder than words. That night, none of them knew that a single touch, so small, so fleeting, would unravel the lives of everyone in that house. It would challenge their beliefs, force them to question their privileges, and reveal truths they were not ready to face. The city continued to roar around them, oblivious to the small miracle unfolding in a forgotten corner. And in the heart of one tiny homeless girl, a spark had been lit, one that would grow into something unstoppable. The next morning, the city awoke with the usual clamor, honking cars, shouting vendors, and the relentless hum of life that paid no heed to a single soul's struggles. But in the grand house on the hill, something had changed. Tommy couldn't stop thinking about the little girl. Even over breakfast, the buttered toast tasted dry, and the syrup on his pancakes seemed meaningless. He kept glancing at the front window, hoping to see her again, hoping to hear her small voice asking for warmth or food. "Tommy, eat properly," his mother said, her tone more insistent than usual. "You can't just think about every child in the city who has nothing." Tommy frowned. "But Mom, she was just there, alone. She's different. I can't explain it, but I feel like she matters." The mother's eyes narrowed, and for a moment the polished veneer of her composure faltered. "Tommy, the world doesn't work that way. You can't save everyone." The boy looked down at his plate, frustrated. But a quiet determination was growing in him, one that would not be dismissed by logic or wealth. Meanwhile, the little girl wandered the rainy streets, trying to find a place that felt safe. But the warmth of the blanket from last night lingered in her mind, a memory that made the cold, wet city feel just a little more bearable. She didn't know where she would sleep tonight. She didn't even know if she would find food, yet somewhere deep inside she carried a spark, a fragile hope that someone out there truly saw her. As the morning wore on, strange things began to happen at the house. The father, usually consumed by work, found himself distracted, pacing his study, thinking of the girl. It wasn't just curiosity or annoyance. It was something heavier, almost like a magnet pulling him out of his routine. He couldn't understand why a homeless child had such a hold over his thoughts. His assistant knocked lightly. "Sir, your schedule for today." "I'm not going in today," the father interrupted sharply, a rare tremor in his voice. "I need to see something first." His assistant frowned but didn't press. Something about the man's tone stopped any argument. By noon, Tommy had slipped outside, clutching a small paper bag filled with sandwiches and fruit. He wandered through the streets, calling softly, "Hey, are you here?" From the corner of an alley, a small shadow emerged. She froze, then stepped forward cautiously. Her eyes were wary, but a smile tugged at her lips as she recognized the boy. "I brought you something," Tommy said, kneeling down to her level. He handed her the bag. "You can eat now." She looked at him astonished. "For me?" "For you," he confirmed. I wanted to help." Tears threatened to fall, but she swallowed them. "Thank you," she whispered. Her voice was so quiet, yet it echoed in Tommy's heart like a bell ringing across a vast emptiness. Just then, a man's voice called from behind, "Tommy, what are you doing?" The mother had followed him, and for the first time her eyes softened. She saw the little girl, small, shivering, fragile, and instead of the usual irritation, something in her chest ached. It wasn't just guilt, it was recognition, a sense that the girl's existence was somehow intertwined with their own. The father appeared then, his coat flapping as he rushed to the scene. "Is she okay?" he asked, his voice unsteady. "She's hungry," Tommy said simply. "I gave her some food." For a long moment, silence hung in the rain-soaked street. Then the father knelt slowly, reaching out a hand. We should bring her inside. Get her warm. Let's see if we can help." The little girl's eyes widened. No one had ever offered her something like this. Not money, not shelter, not even a kind word that carried so much promise. But now, here was a family, rich, untouchable, and yet strangely human, offering her warmth, food, and safety. As she stepped toward the light of the house, the city seemed to blur behind her. For the first time, she felt a flicker of trust, a belief that maybe, just maybe, the world could be kind. And inside that house, everything had shifted. A touch, a smile, and a meal shared on a rainy street had begun to unravel old patterns. Hearts were opening, walls were crumbling, and in the quiet hum of a rainy city, the impossible was beginning to happen. A homeless little girl had touched not just a boy but a family, and in doing so had set in motion a chain of events that would change all their lives forever. But none of them knew the depth of what was about to unfold. Days passed, and the little girl began to settle into the house in a way that surprised everyone. She wasn't used to warmth, to clean clothes, to meals that didn't vanish in a single gulp. Yet she adapted quickly, her presence quietly reshaping the household. Tommy insisted she sit at the table with him, talk to him about her dreams, her fears, her small joys. And every day, the father and mother noticed the subtle changes, laughter in corners of the house where there had been silence, moments of stillness where resentment or distance had once ruled. But what happened next was truly unbelievable. One evening, the father was reviewing business documents in his office when he noticed a strange document slipped under his door. Curious, he unfolded it. It was an official letter from the city's social services, an offer of guardianship and immediate support for a child in urgent need. The girl's real identity, her history, and the circumstances of her homelessness had reached him in a way that felt orchestrated by fate itself. He rushed to the living room, where Tommy and the girl were playing with a small toy train. Do you know what this means?" he asked, his voice breaking slightly. "We can officially help her, make her part of this family." The girl blinked, unsure of how to react. Her life had been a series of endless no's, of closed doors and cold hands. To hear that someone could claim her as part of their world felt surreal. I don't know," she whispered, clutching her stuffed rabbit. "You belong here," Tommy said firmly, placing his hand over hers. "We've been waiting for you." The mother knelt beside her, gently brushing damp hair from her face. "You're safe now. Forever," she said. And at that moment, something remarkable happened. It wasn't just legal or procedural, it was emotional. The invisible weight of a life filled with fear and struggle lifted in a way that words couldn't describe. The little girl laughed, a bright crystal sound that had been absent for far too long, and hugged Tommy tightly. The father, watching them, felt a surge of something he hadn't experienced in years: hope, compassion. A reminder that life wasn't only about schedules, contracts, or wealth. Sometimes it was about a small, fleeting touch that could change everything. Over the next few months, the girl became a permanent member of the family. She went to school, learned new things, and slowly healed from the hardships of the streets. But her influence didn't stop at her own life. The family, once focused solely on their wealth and appearances, began to see the world differently. They volunteered, they reached out to others in need, and their home became a place where kindness was no longer rare but expected. One evening, as the family sat together watching the sunset from the backyard, the girl whispered, "I was afraid that no one would care." Tommy squeezed her hand. "I always knew someone would." The father smiled, a warmth spreading through him that went beyond pride. "You remind us what really matters," he said. And in that moment, the unbelievable truth became clear. It had taken one homeless little girl, one simple touch, to awaken hearts that had been closed for far too long. She hadn't just changed a boy or a family, she had changed the way they saw the world, the way they chose to live, and the way they chose to love. From the streets to the warmth of a home, from loneliness to belonging, from fear to hope, her journey had started with nothing, yet ended with everything that truly mattered. Sometimes the smallest gestures, the briefest connections, could ripple across lives in ways no one could predict. And for this little girl, her touch had done exactly that. The city continued its relentless pace, indifferent and chaotic, but in one small house on a quiet street, something miraculous had taken place. A child's courage, a boy's compassion, and a family's awakening converged, proving that, even in the coldest nights, warmth could be found, sometimes in the most unexpected places. And from that day on, the girl never had to face the streets alone again.